Hey everybody, I have a 15-minute foam rolling for your legs this time around. I did do a video that was for foam rolling with the tennis ball, so you can revert back to that if you don't have a foam roller, or you can watch this if this is something you've been wanting to learn how to do. This is just going to be focusing on the legs. If you're not familiar with what's called self-myofascia release, there's fascia tissue that surrounds your whole body over your muscles as well as your internal organs. We're going to be rolling out the superficial part that is on the outside of your muscles. Fascia tissue can become bound up. Those like knots or sore spots you might feel in different places. Those are that fascia tissue that you need to unwind and kind of release. So what we're going to be doing is rolling through the muscles that can have some areas that might be restrictive. That can also affect our alignment. It can affect when our tissues get dehydrated over time. This also allows to bring in and hydrate those tissues by flushing fluid into those, creating more mobility for us in some of those spots. So it's a great tool to use whether or not you have injuries or not, but especially if you have any alignment injuries or pain in different joints, this is a great way to help release that. It increases your flexibility more than just stretching alone. So doing this in addition to flexibility can help to increase your range of motion. It can be done before or after workouts. But we're going to start first. You may have seen lots of different ones out there on the market. I have a half one here and a bigger and a larger one. This one has textures. So there's lots of different options. If you're a little bit more sensitive, you may want to try the softer ones first. They also, though, make these in firm density as well. So you want to kind of watch out for kind of what you're actually buying. First, though, we're going to start with our quads. Now, especially in some of those bigger muscle areas, it's good kind of to break them up. So we're going to start kind of some of the areas we may break up halfway. So for the first part on our quads, we're going to kind of focus on that upper part of the quads, maybe a little bit into that hip flexor muscle. So you're going to come down almost into like a plank position where my forearms are on the ground, right underneath my shoulder. And I'm just going to gently rock my arms forward and back, rolling through that muscle in through my lower back. Try to also kind of keep a neutral spine position. So you don't want to allow your hips to fully drop down, kind of rolling through that area. Now you're probably feeling just the top part of the quad. So to get the outside and inside angle, you just turn and rotate your feet to one side. Now I'm kind of rolling on the outside of one leg, the inside of one leg, and then doing the same thing, rolling on the outside of one leg, inside of the other leg, and then I can go back to the center. Now I'm going, if I walk my arms a little bit more forward, now I'm going into that bottom half of my quad. So I already kind of did that top half, and I'm going all the way to the top of my knees. Again, if I rotate my feet in one direction, I'm hitting the inside and outside of one thigh, and then if I rotate it to the other direction, same thing, I'm kind of hitting that inside and outside. I'm going to go into my IT band. So I'm going to go into almost like a side planking position now with my elbow under my shoulder. And then I'm going to be rolling out the outside of my hip on this side. I can bring my foot across the top. I can stack my foot, whatever feels most comfortable for me. But let's just start with that top part. If you need, though, for balance reasons, you can actually push through that top leg by just bringing it over the top. So I'm kind of rotating into that side part of my IT band. It can sometimes be a little bit tender. If you rock a little bit forward or rock a little bit back, you'll get the back and front side of it. Going to the second part of it, the lower part of it, same thing, kind of rock a little bit forward or a little bit to the side. If you find a spot that's real sore, you can even sit on it, take some deep breaths. Try not to hold your breath or sit too long in one spot. You can sit anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds. Now I'm coming up onto my glutes, so into my piriformis muscle that runs right through the middle of our glutes. So a couple ways of doing this. As I lean back, I can either have my hand position as I do, or you can make a fist. And then I'm just pushing with my bent knee and just running through my glutes. I can lean forward on this one, I can lean back, but I'm just kind of sitting, rolling around through that area in the backside. If I want to get into my piriformis, which is a common area for people to be tight, I'm going to cross my ankle and then roll, lean a little bit into that side. So right now my right ankle is on my left knee, so I'm leaning a little bit towards my right glute, and then just rolling through that area of my piriformis. From here, then I can just go right onto the other side. So I can bend one knee and straighten the other leg and roll through that glute area. And I'm pushing through my feet. And if I don't really feel much tenderness, I can go into maybe my piriformis by crossing my left ankle onto my right knee. And then again, you're leaning a little bit into that side, maybe even a little bit into kind of the outer part of that hip. Deep breaths in and out. And then release that leg. Now, for you, you can just roll directly to one side, going into your IT band. So we're going to do the other side of the IT band. I'm going to flip over just so you can see me a little bit better on the camera. So now we're going into that other side. We haven't rolled the IT band on the other side. That top leg can come up. And then I'm rolling half of it and the top half. You can roll all the way in and out. But sometimes it can be a little bit hard on the shoulder to do that big of a movement. So I'm just kind of rocking in that one spot. And then walk my arm out a little bit and then go to that bottom half part of that IT band. You can also kind of sit on it. If there's one spot that's sore, I can lean it back just a little bit. And I can also do the same thing of leaning just a little bit forward. A lot of times there's tension around the right above or below a joint. And I'm going to push myself back up. Now, when you are doing those glutes, you can also go into your hip right as, you know, doing your glutes, kind of roll and lean over it right into the hip joint itself, kind of around it. You never want to hit that bonier part of the hip, but just the muscles around it. You can even kind of lean back a little bit and roll around that area. I can lean forward just a little bit and hit kind of that spot right on the top of my hip flexor that inserts right in here. And then I can even do that on the other side. Just right above that hip joint. This is a real small little motion around that area. And again, just taking some deep breaths in and out. And then release that. Going into hamstrings. Now for your hamstrings, you can do same thing. You can cut that into two spots. So with my hand position, I'm going to either have my hands placed out or in towards me, but just not behind like this. That'll put a lot of pressure on the wrist. You can also make a fist position. Can sometimes be a little bit more comfortable. So I'm just going to roll through the back part of my knee, not in the bone of my knee though, just right above the top of the back part of my knee, and then kind of halfway into my hamstrings. Or you can even do full hamstrings from bottom to the top. Depends on what's comfortable for you, but we'll just talk about doing the top part. Now, if your wrists get tired in this position, you can also cross your foot just to get a little bit more pressure and kind of scoot up and back. For some of you, that may give you enough pressure where you don't be having to lift your whole hips up as you do it. If you don't feel a deep enough pressure and you do want a bit more pressure into it, you can cross your legs as you roll side to side. Now to get the inner and outer part of the hamstring, just like we did the quadricep, you'll need to turn your toes in one direction, getting the inside on one side and the outside the other, and then turn your toes into the other direction. Same thing, you can have your foot crossed over the other foot to do that as well. Let's go into the upper part of the hamstring, so kind of base of the glutes, back part there's no right or wrong way necessarily to do this. So whatever kind of feels comfortable for you. If it's one-legged and you're kind of pushing with the other leg, if it's your hips down and you're kind of crossing it and then scooting around to get those hamstrings. And then going into the calf muscle. So the calves can be done the same way as the hamstrings. You can cross that foot to get a little bit more deep pressure into that. So we'll start at the top part and just kind of work our way around. If I turn my toes in, I'm going to get that inside of that leg, or if I turn my toes out, I can do both feet at the same time or one at a time. If I lift my hips up into the air and I want to roll out, you know, all the way in through my calves, back and forth, I can do that. I can keep my hips down and kind of roll it. Remember, we have an option also using a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball to do this too. Take it down to the bottom half of it. A lot of times the areas of tension and tightness are in the upper part of the calf and the lower part more around the ankle joint. So you might find a real sore spot that you can just be kind of pushing your body weight without having to lift your hips up off the floor, and I can just kind of work through that side. I can also go side to side with this. So I can go with the line of the muscle up and down, or I can go cross-sectionally on side of it. So you might find some sore spots that way too. If you haven't done the other side, go ahead and work through the lower part of the other side. You can cross the foot if you want to keep your hips down. Remember, if you turn that foot in, I kind of can get, I'm getting like the inward part of my foot, or if I turn my foot out, kind of get that outward part of my ankle. Or you can lift up and do the same thing. If you find a spot that's real sore, you can hold it, breathe through it, and then kind of work around. Kind of imagine like a dry sponge, what a dry sponge looks like. And once you soak it in water, the sponge comes back to life and comes back to its form. So that's what we're doing, flushing getting that fluid flushed into those dehydrated tissues that are tight, allowing for greater mobility for us. And then gently relax. So a great way also, if you foam rolled, especially this is at like the end of your workout, or it's just a recovery workout where you're just trying to work mobility, is to then do a stretch after you've done some of the soft tissue stuff. So I'll just go through a couple quick stretches for the lower body that are good after you've been doing this. So for your glutes, you got your piriformis, right ankle onto your left leg. You can bring your left leg up and just hold that stretch. So right after you kind of rolled out your glutes, or if that's just an area you want to hit, this is a good stretch to do. Right after that, you'd switch and do the other ankle on the other leg. Just taking a few deep breaths in and out. Now for your quads, you can roll onto your side and grab your ankle, bringing your knee straight down. You can do this lying, or you can be standing up, doing this stretch as well. And just grabbing my hand onto the outside of my ankle. And then you can just flip over to the other side or roll onto the other side, grabbing that ankle, pointing that knee straight down. Take a couple deep breaths in and out. And then coming up into a seated position, both legs straight out. I can hinge forward, stretching out my hamstrings right here. I can bend my knees just a little bit if I need to soften those. To just get a little bit deeper stretch. Kind of relax the toes. If I want to go a little bit into my calves, I can pull back on my toes. Getting a bit of more of like my gastrocnemius, the upper part of the back of the leg. Deep breath in and out. And then I'll show you one more stretch for your calves. A lot of times you see traditionally this stretch happening with your upper part of the back of the calf. And to get more of the lower part, if you just go to the wall, place your toe, big toes and little toes on the wall, heel on the floor, and then lean forward, that's gonna get deeper into that soleus. So the one that goes a little bit into the ankle, or if your ankle is tight, this is a good stretch to work a little bit ankle mobility. And then switch to the other side. Just kind of lean forward, heel towards the toe. And just a nice stretch to the front. And gently release. Self-myofascial release is something just like stretching you can do every day. You're not limited to just certain days, but it can really help if you have some tight bound tissues.